On my most recent video looking at why no one plays support, you made it very clear in the comments that there was a bigger issue with tanks. So why does no one want to play a tank then? Let's dive into the role and answer that question. So again, to better explain what happened to tank, let's first explain their history. At launch, tank didn't exist as a role. Everything was wrapped up into a single role called warrior. However, it quickly became apparent that within this role there were two main categories: heroes that had strong CC and survivability, like Diablo, Stitches and Muradin, while others acted almost like a supporting tank, those whose frontline wasn't as good, but excelled at disruption and damage output. The majority of the community began referring to these secondary warriors as bruisers, since they were in the frontline disrupting, but not tanking. So guess what Blizzard did when they revamped the role system? They split warrior into tank and bruiser to fit the roles the community had already established. Tanks were given better CC and armor, while bruisers focused on better self-sustain, damage and disruption. Oh, and they removed Zarya out of the warrior role because she should never been there in the first place. Out of the two roles, people naturally gravitated towards tank, as it fit in 99% of team compositions. They were subsequently given better frontline capabilities, and when the armor/spell armor system was introduced, they were seen as a must-pick in Stormleague, and still are to this day. Bruisers, on the other hand, poses an interesting challenge. You see, for a long time the prevailing meta has been the following comp. This offlaner would naturally fit a bruiser role, one with good wave clear and self-sustain, but it doesn't naturally always have to be a bruiser. Most people would prefer to choose either a melee or ranged assassin because of the damage output. So their popularity began to reduce over time. The result of this is that bruiser is picked far less in Stormleague compared to Quickmatch. If we look at the pick rate for Stormleague, we see several tanks appearing in the top 10 to 20, Muradin, Diablo, Joanna, Varian, even Stitches, but the first bruisers to appear are Artanis and Leoric at 15 to 16 respectively. The rest are way further down. While if we look at Quickmatch, there is absolutely nothing from either role until you get to Artanis and then Stitches at 24. So clearly there is a glaring issue when it comes to Quickmatch, which is unfortunate as this is the largest game mode by far. Hands down, the biggest reason is dependent on if you are a solo queue or playing as part of a team, thanks in part to there being fewer healers being picked. You see, it is incredibly common to be queued with 4 other assassins, making your game a living hell as a tank, since if you don't have a healer, then you are a sitting duck. That's why bruisers and tanks like Artanis, Stitches and Muradin are featuring slightly higher, since if you don't have a healer, they are better positioned to at least have some impact thanks to their self-sustain. At least in the case of a healer, if it's you and 4 other assassins, you can at least sit in the backline and have some impact, while tanks and bruisers who thrive in the frontline typically just get poked down. Okay, so tanks/bruisers aren't being used in Quickmatch, and a select few in Stormleague. It begs the question then, is there simply an underlying power issue, or do they need buffing? Well, my honest answer would be that on the whole, no, but some tanks and bruisers definitely need a lot of work. The tank meta for years now has been a combination of a few tanks, those being Diablo, Joanna, Garrosh, Muradin, and even Anub'arak and Varian in some comps. Most tank mains have grown tired of this and have been asking for change for a long time. While on the flip side, some just simply need some work, like Chen, who is so easy to counter, and the community has been asking for an Arthas rework since the dawn of time. Thank God they introduced ARAM though, because many of the heroes that are terrible in conventional games perform very well in ARAM. Hogger is a great example. They are a somewhat mediocre hero in conventional games, but on ARAM they are an A or even S tier pick in my opinion. So does skill come into the equation here at all? Well, yes, but only in the same way of any role. Understanding positioning, macro, cooldowns, communication. A bad overall player can therefore make a bad overall tank, and that can snowball a game into a losing one. And since there is a lot of pressure on the tank, it can cause people to flame very quickly, which isn't a great experience. However, there are some heroes in the roster that can be more effective based on what skill level you play at. Mal'Ganis is an excellent example. In lower ranks he performs very well, thanks to a relatively well-rounded kit, but as you increase in rank his performance drops off a cliff, thanks mainly to the fact that all of his abilities have a cast time, so all you need to do is pick a couple of heroes with CC or interrupt and you are golden. Try playing Mal'Ganis into a good Lucio player and you'll find out what I mean. So to conclude then, in Stormleague there are a few strong tanks that get picked consistently and have done for a long time, thanks to a somewhat stagnant meta, while Quickmatch has a significant issue on its hands. Tanks are some of the least picked heroes by far, thanks in part to the lack of healers. If you are a solo queue, you are even more likely not to pick tanks, thanks to the uncertainty of getting chucked with 4 assassins. Oh, and Blizzard, please take a look at some of the heroes that just don't perform well. My man Chen has been sitting on the bench for far too long. If you like this video, then please consider dropping a like on the video or subscribing for more content, and I will see you in the next video.